y'all. It's Bridget Cutshaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Becky Galli. She's an author and she has a tremendous background. She has a lot to share today. And I'm so glad that we connected because she is definitely a symbol of resilience. She's gone through a lot of stuff in life. We all are dealing with something, but Becky's dealt with more than people realize. And I guess my first question, Becky, is what prompted you? I know you had your brother died when you was young, but what prompted you to actually start writing? How old were you? How's that?
Well, it was actually something I never expected, never planned, which is so often the way life goes, right? I was a sales and marketing gal with IBM and started my career with them and married the man of my dreams. And we had 4 children. And then two of our kids had special needs. One had epilepsy, one had autism. And then it was a little much for our marriage to handle that, so we became divorced. And 9 days after I was divorced, I became paralyzed with transverse myelitis,
What the
which
heck?
no, right? Like who plans this stuff? So it was a third of people recover fully from this, and a third recover partially, and a third have no recovery at all. At the time, the kids were 3, 4, 7, and 9. And so I was very hopeful at that point. And one of the things that my father had suggested when I lost my brother, that was back when I was 20 and he was 17, was to journal and to really to get through the tough times. And so I picked up that journaling that I had started back in my 20s to help me process what all was happening. And then a friend I hadn't seen in years read about my paralysis and said, is that you? And because I hadn't seen him in years, I kind of updated him. This is back in 1997, before there were blogs or social media or anything. This was back in the day when you did one email at a time. And when I began to write to him and update him on my marriage and my kids and my divorce and this strange paralysis that I was very hopeful at the time I would recover from, uh, I began to share stories about what it was like to be in a wheelchair, to parent in a wheelchair, to get around in a wheelchair. And he shared the stories, and then I shared my stories, one email at a time with people. And somebody said, you know what, maybe you should try to publish this. And so that's where my column history began, and the columns became the basis of the book. So it was kind of a very convoluted way to getting to writing a book, but it actually ended up being pretty therapeutic.
I think I'm on the same page with you. I think I agree with that. Some people toss it aside, but it helped you, right? And it helped me. And when I was a kid, I journaled. I always was writing stories. I don't know why. That's just how I was. But my parents, I had a tumult, as a child. You know what I'm saying? So I just instinctively knew. But you has an unbelievable situation. And when you had this transverse myelitis, how old were your children? I was just curious.
Yeah, they were 3, 4, 7, and 9.
Oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
then you were a single mom at that point still? Oh, holy cow.
Only 9 days. That was the part that was just kind of crazy, the timing of everything. But the good news about that is when my husband and I were considering divorce, we went through extensive counseling, and I told the therapist, I said, look, if we're going to get through this, I either want an amazing marriage or an amazing divorce. And having an amazing divorce where we're still friendly and vacation together, and he's been very supportive of me and our children. And I'll always be grateful for the time I took to go through counseling and really work through it and not just skip over it.
Right. I mean, I'm so glad your ex-husband is your friend still and supports you. And it even makes it even harder to have, you said two of your children have issues. What are they dealing with?
Well, my oldest son, Matthew, had severe epilepsy and it became a degenerative
Mm.
disease as well. And he died at age 15.
Oh God, I did not know that part. Yeah.
So, but he taught me a lot about so many things, what to hold dear to you and what to hope for and how to let go of some hope, because I think sometimes that's the hardest thing in going through these times is knowing what to hope for that isn't torturous. If it can't be possible, then we need to let go of that hope, because sometimes hope can be something that is it puts us in this a realm of uncertainty that isn't realistic. We have to balance our hope with reality.
Yeah.
And so it became, but he was a dear child, and my daughter with autism just turned 33
That's
and
awesome.
doing well. She's still very limited in her. She can't read or write or ever be left alone. But I found a wonderful day program and group home for her, and I get to visit regularly. She's not too far away, so that part's good. But um, her diagnosis at that time led me to uh, meet with other parents, and we actually formed an organization, Pathfinders for Autism, that is celebrating their 25th anniversary
Wow.
this year. So we decided, that's the best way to help others, and what we're learning was to form this organization. So but she's doing well and the organization's doing well, and we're helping people by what we learn.
That's really the goal of connecting like that, and especially uh having a child with autism, people don't know what to do, right? They're embarrassed, maybe, right? Sometimes some maybe like my mother's generation would be. She's in her 80s, but that's kind of it's helpful to the our culture that we're in that to understand what you guys are dealing with, and in that you're not alone, right? You're a team in a way.
And back at that time when Madison was diagnosed with autism, this was when the medical profession and the teaching profession, they didn't have a lot of answers. There wasn't such thing as Google. And so I learned about a therapy that wound up helping Madison learn how to speak from another parent who happened to say, come see how my child is learning how to speak. And so I went to her home and saw this therapy and action and tried it with Madison, and it worked, where she could learn with this therapy. And it wasn't from a professional, a doctor or a teacher. It was from another parent. And that's where we thought, the parents need to share what they're learning. Let's get organized. Let's make ourselves available. And now it's a thriving organization that helps 20,000 people a year.
So what was unique about the therapy compared to what you were using before? Just curious.
It was called ABA, which is an applied behavioral analysis therapy that was very, with autism, you have to give processing time for a child to understand something. Their communication skills are challenged, and it takes them longer to process things and to respond to things. And so this was a very clear-cut stimulus response kind of pattern that seemed to work with Madison. Doesn't work for every child, but it worked for her, and it's worked for a lot of children.
Their brains are wired differently. All of our brains are wired differently. And some people think it's got to be fast, but it's not. Everybody's situation is different. I'm glad that you recognize that for your daughter and you're helping her and so many other people. And then you, I guess, to kind of go back to your writing, your first book was memoir, right?
Right.
And what is the title of that? Resilience, I think.
Rethinking
Oh,
possibly.
rethinking. It's about resilience, though. Okay.
Yes, it is. And I think when you it was the title wasn't my choice, it was my publisher's choice. And I really think it that is what resilience is rethinking what's possible given your circumstance, to accept what you have to accept and come up with what you can still do within that. My shortcut when I'm on the edge of a pity pit where I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't do this, I can't do that. My shortcut to this rethinking possible is these simple statements, even though whatever it is that I don't want to accept, but I need to, I can still. And that lets you lean into the possibility. So even though I'm paralyzed, I can still write. Even though it's raining outside, I can still do a project inside.
Right.
Even so my kids live far away from me now, I can still FaceTime them. So it really is a quick way to, get your brain oriented a different way.
I like that, to rethink what's possible, not focus on the negative aspect. You're focusing. I like to try to find a positive perspective, and that's kind of what your book sounds like. And I joke that positive perspectives is a quiet rebellion for me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Quiet.
it is kind of because we're told, all this negative stuff. Like, yeah, but we have to acknowledge it, like you did, Becky. But then you focused, okay, what can I do now that I'm here? What can I do with what I got? Right. And that's what is so helpful. And that's why you're still here and you're inspiring so many other people. And I think life can be good, right? You just need to. One of my favorite um, shirt companies it's called Life is Good. I wear those. I like to me that's just positive. Even though some people think, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to be around you if you think it's negative. But I don't say that out loud. But I have one of my favorite shirts. It says, "I run like the wind." Then I put ed at the end, winded, because I do like to run. I'm still able to run. But as you get older, I have to realize I have to slow it down a little bit. But it's everybody finds things in life that fuels them, right? What, brightens your day, right? And that's kind of why I think you got into the writing. It brightens your day. It's helping so many other people. And your second book is called Morning Fuel. Did I read that? Okay. So what prompted you to do that, or what's the story behind that?
So after I wrote Rethinking Possible, I did a lot of speaking about that, did a lot of book clubs about that. And the number one question I got was, how do you keep going? How do you keep going? And what I like to do when I'm really on my game, I'm up and I'm have my lemon water before I have my coffee. And I'll watch the sunrise if I'm up early, which I love to do. And then I do some morning readings. So I have like 5 or 6 books that are very short readings, just a little reading a day. And it kind of gets me going, gets my mind going in a positive way. And then I do some journaling and get on with the day. So I figured with my second book, I would answer that question. How do I get going? How do I stay motivated by writing what I read? And so I took the stories that I've written through the years. I started this, as I mentioned, when I first started writing, it became as a column. So I became a columnist and wrote, my first column was called From Where I Sit. And I had written columns about that and a couple others, and done some freelance work. And so I have about 400 or so columns that were on my website. So I went through those and picked out the ones that I liked the best and did 366 of them for leap year in case we run into one of those, and put those together. So they're short little stories that are they're designed to either inspire, encourage, or make you think. And so there's the story, and then there's a couple reflection questions at the end, and you can journal on those or just think about those. But that was written in response to that question, and also to kind of capture kind of like greatest hits in my mind. Legacy for my kids. These are some of the stories that they may have forgotten that I want them to remember. So a lot of different reasons, but it's been well received. People have given it as gifts, or they want to stay on quote on the same page with somebody that's not nearby. They give that and can stay connected that way.
I think it's so important. You're really a great role model, I think, and you're showing that even though there's uncertainty in life, you're still living, right? You're still adding value to everybody. You have value. You realize that, and I think some people who have had a disability, they do feel down, but you found a way to pick yourself, even though you're in a chair, like your Instagram handle is like chair writer, right?
Exactly. Right.
Right. It doesn't matter where you're writing from, you're writing, you're doing it, and you're still able to do that. And I think that is a big applause. I'm gonna applaud for you. But I mean, I think I'm just so inspired myself, just listening to you. A lot of us are writers and we get out of it and we get back into it. But I think your second book, to me, I see it as helping you stay focused, right? Helps you stay focused because there's so much info now, Becky. Like you said, over 25 years ago, we didn't have. So now it's helping you focus. It helps other focus, and you're writing for an audience that needs to hear what you're saying or read what you're saying. Excuse me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think it is important, though, it's to be very honest about how life isn't always, what you want it to be. It isn't always good. And
Right.
one of an instructor told me many years ago is if you want to keep writing, you have to know why you write. And to your point, I believe that life can be good. And as I like to say, life can be good no matter what. And I've had a lot of what, but, uh, life can be good. The operative word there is can, which means it takes some work. It doesn't just happen. You have to really work at that.
That's true. It's not magic. It doesn't just magically show up. And you have to put forth the effort. And you probably have to put a little bit more effort than some people, right? Because you have to get up. You have to get into your wheelchair and get in front of I'm assuming your desktop or laptop, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
it takes effort for you to get up. And I think you staying positive, I like that. It's something we definitely have in common. Haven't had the same issues as you, but it's just we all have different stories to share. And I see it as you're showing gratitude, right, every day. And that's something that we forget about in our day and age. I'm guilty of it sometimes, not being grateful for what's in front of me. I'm guilty of that. Becky, I'm sure you felt that way at some point too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of those can things. What are you grateful for today? And to really think through simple things matter too. And
Oh
in
yeah,
in some cases, my loss is very visible. My power wheelchair is my power wheelchair. That's what you see when you see me. But other people have, I call invisible losses. Those losses that you don't see, but that doesn't mean they aren't hurting in some way.
that's true. And you're an example of the tough time you had to deal with. You found your way back, right? So for those that are listening, what do you recommend, Becky? What do the takeaways for the readers? Why don't you not readers, listeners of your story?
I would say three things really is first of all, to be very honest about how you're feeling with this situation, whatever it is, to be honest about your feelings and then to be honest about your capacity to deal with your situation. And once you've been really honest about those things, move to the resources. Who can help you move through this? I have this image of, I call it who's in your boat. If you're going through stormy seas, who do you invite in your boat to help you get through it? And then I think keep moving. I love what Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going. And I really feel like that forward momentum is very important, not to isolate and to always have something to look forward to. I'm a big planner, and to always have people around you who can support you.
I love that. I think that's great. When you said keep moving, that is so important. My mom always says, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. That's kind of what she's always said to me. I like that aspect, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so where can people find you on the internet, Becky? Where's the best way?
Oh, it's pretty simple. My website is beckygalli.com, BECKYGALLI.com. And on there, you can find information about both books, Morning Fuel and Rethinking Possible. They're both available wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, independent bookstores. Um, and some of my columns are on there too, and more about my life as well.
I love that. I think you're quite the inspiration and you're motivating so many people, realize, not just inspiring, you're motivating them to write and to find the positive in the day and be grateful. We all have to realize life is unexpected. You don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yes.
Right.
Uh, it's just the way of the world, a lot of mystery in it. And I forgot to mention also social media, as you said before, at Chair Writer, and Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. For those that are listening, I'm going to include those links you mentioned in the description. And I'm definitely going to go start following you on Instagram for sure.
Right back at you. I'll do the same.
Thanks again for your time, Becky. You're very, very inspirational.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's been great to get to know you.
Have a great day, everybody.